This is Andrea, 32 years old, today at total assets of $250,000. And while it may seem that she has it together, she had to go through difficult situations.
Almost a year after we were married, a friend reached out to me. She had heard that he was having an affair with somebody that he worked with. A week later, I was living on my own.
If she had not made the right decisions, her financial situation could have been ruined.
It was over $200,000 of debt that he had accrued, and at the time I didn't know where it came from.
In this video, we'll dive into how she earned those massive savings while working a regular job and uncover strategies to protect herself from losing everything. Welcome to Finance Action, the show where we take action. My name is Romain, and today I am with Andrea. Andrea, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Andrea, let's look at your profile. So you're 32 years old, you're originally from Rochester, New York. You currently live in San Diego, and you work primarily as a registered nurse, but also you've been working in movies recently. Is that right?
Yes.
Very good. Looking at the way you rated your personal finances from chilling to payday, ladies and gentlemen, Andrea rated yourself as I'm okay, which is awesome to hear. And so Andrea, please bring me into some of the components around your story.
I've always kind of worked my butt off since I was 15 years old, paid for my first car with my savings, have always been very good with my money. So I got into nursing and racked up a pretty hefty amount of loans, but I was able to tackle that. And then I came to California as a travel nurse and have gone through some recent events that have kind of put a damper on my financial situation.
Andrea is in an excellent, so I've done about 150 different of those cases, finance cases. Andrea here sitting next to me probably ranks in the top 3. So if you guys, again, are here to learn about how to manage money correctly, this is going to be very intense and very, very exciting. I want to tackle a little bit as to some of the recent events that you've mentioned. Mm-hmm. Can you walk me through a little bit about what's going on?
Sure. So I got married in May of 2022.
Okay.
I was living with my husband. We were splitting finances 50-50, which was very manageable. And then we split up about a year later, a little bit less than a year later. And I have found it much more difficult to maintain the lifestyle that I was living on my own now.
Okay, so married not too long ago, right? About maybe a year and a half or so, a bit more than that. And already divorced. Kind of walk me through kind of what happened there.
A week before we got married, I had brought up the conversation that I had brought up many times before of finances, because things just weren't adding up. The conversations before had been pushed aside, and he would get really frustrated and uncomfortable with me asking about finances. So he told me, okay, yeah, I have some debt. And he said it was about $40,000 in debt, which, okay, we can deal with that. We're about to get married. I love you. You love me. It's just money. That was kind of my mindset going into it. And then, weeks after we got married, that number doubled. And then weeks later, it tripled. And then weeks after that, it just kept adding up until, I realized that it was over $200,000 of debt that he had accrued. And at the time, I didn't know where it came from. He was very, wasn't really forthcoming with where it came from. Almost a year after we were married, a friend reached out to me and said that she had heard that he was having an affair with somebody that he worked with. So I confronted him about that. So yeah, that was my time to go. So got an apartment, and a week later I was living on my own.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrea, for walking us through this story. I'm sure this was probably not an easy time during your life. I want to dive a little bit into the specifics around finance within a couple. And I truthfully believe, and in your case, finance was kind of a first red flag of something that then pursued into other factors. But finance being one of the primary cause of divorces in the United States, I believe it's around 30 to 40%. Mm-hmm. It is key. It is key for a couple that hopes to be, at some point saying yes to forever, to be forthcoming with some of those elements.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was very open with my financial situation just because I don't really have anything to hide in that aspect.
No, actually, excellent.
Yeah. But obviously it was a sore subject for him because he was keeping that from me. So every time I would bring it up, why are you working so much? Because I wanted to spend time together. We're newly married, newly engaged. You're in that honeymoon phase. You want to spend time with each other. And it just wasn't happening. He was constantly working, and it just kept making me rack my brain. And then I'm comparing our situation to friends who are in similar situations. And I'm like, they're working part-time with the same amount of expenses that we have. But you have to work 60 hours a week. It just didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. At the time of your marriage, did you guys do any prenups?
No, we did not.
Okay. What was the reason behind it?
I guess in my mind, doing a prenup just makes you think like, oh, you're not in it 100%.
Okay.
In retrospect, should have gotten a prenup. Thankfully, didn't need one.
That's fair.
But, going forward, I would never, I wouldn't question it 100%.
That's fair. Thank you, Andrea. So I'm going to take a personal stand on that topic. I believe that in the context that we live in today's society, a prenup is a necessity. Now, yes, this may appear as controversial, but I truthfully believe that discussions around some of those topics should happen when everything is in the rainbows, right? In maybe not the honeymoon, because that's a little bit later, but in the discussions that pre the marriage. And the idea that I have personally as to the limitations on the prenup is very dependent on the situation of both parties. But personally, in my stance, everything that is inherited from a family perspective should be to the owner of the person that comes from this family, and things that have been created before the marriage should be against to the ownership of the person before the wedding. However, after for common assets that gets created after a wedding, after marriage, I believe that those should be shared. I think in a fair way. Again, we want to maintain fairness as to the transaction. I don't want this to be seen as a transaction, but guys, look, let's be realistic. In today's societies and statistics, a lot of couples get divorced. I mean, love is, true being forever, but here we have a situation where love existed, I'm sure, between both parties, and at the end, well, the story sometimes just doesn't pan out, and that's just the way it is. So I'd rather have difficult conversations happening before something may arise. And look, guys, it's if a partner comes to you and say, oh, are you not married and you're not committed to 100% to it, I know those can be very difficult situations when brought up, but I think it is about defining personally the way I would approach it. And I am personally approaching it with my partner as well, is along the lines of, look, what you've created is yours. And what we are going to create is going to be together. Yes. But that is something that should be moved very smoothly. I wouldn't go say, oh, I want to do a prenup with you. That can be received, pretty difficult. Some additional elements as well that I've had actually one of my peers, has a safeguard, which is very interesting, almost ironic, is a $1 million clause. Are you ready for this one? A $1 million clause in the wedding contract that if one of either spouse is found having an affair of cheating, they will own the other party $1 million.
Ooh.
Yes.
Should have done that.
So there are definitely, and I don't want it to feel like we are putting a financial value to a sentiment or an emotion.
Right.
No. However, there are processes and creativity in place that can happen for specific scenarios. If it's something that is really stressful to the couple, you can argue about some of those clauses, and there is a bunch of available options. Now, this, let's be honest, is a little bit extreme.
Yeah.
But it makes you think twice as to how hard you want the marriage and how hard are you ready to work for it. So that is kind of some elements that I would want to bring. And I understand if there is some comments here that are, a little bit against that ideology, but that's the way personally I think about it from a pure fairness perspective. Well, I'm glad that you didn't have to need a prenup. Things seems to have worked pretty well where you've been able to kind of distance yourself from of that debt. Do you know the nature of that debt? Is it like student loans? What type of debt did he had?
He told me that he took out a personal loan.
Okay.
And then invested it into cryptocurrency.
Oh.
Yeah. So that shit the bed. And then he owed it all back with interest and just couldn't keep up with the payments. And then I know there was a pretty substantial amount of credit card debt as well. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other things that I should be aware of yourself, Andrea, in order to assess your financial situation?
Yeah. So, I don't want to let the marriage and divorce define me because I am my own person. So I originally moved to California because I've always wanted to be an actress. Didn't tell anyone. Was completely embarrassed about it for whatever reason. So I used travel nursing to get out to California. I've been nursing for about a decade now. I used to love it. I did emergency medicine for most of my career. Last year, I switched to urgent care because I needed kind of a slower pace so I can kind of feel myself starting to get burnt out. Now that I'm single, I've had the year to kind of, reflect on me and my life and what I'm doing and what I want to be doing. And I decided that now or never, so I'm starting to take the steps that I need to just start my acting career. And I'm really excited about it.
Okay, awesome. So I will take this into consideration as we think about assessing whether or not this is the right time for you to take that leap. And now that I know a little bit more about your story, Andrea, let's move on to our next segment, which looks at your income and your assets. If you like this type of content, we invite you to like and subscribe as this helps the channel tremendously. Thank you. So you work as a registered nurse in the state of California. How much does that pay you per year?
$100,000, I'd say.
$100,000, okay. And at $100,000 for a registered nurse, that seems a little bit on the low side in California. How come?
It is. So I used to work full time, and then I worked part time, and then I got married. So then I started working per diem, which is probably also a reflection of me being burnt out in nursing.
Okay, so per diem is you're pretty much selecting your shift, almost like kind of I don't want to say Uber, but you're like selecting when you want to work.
Correct.
And so on. You're just not partaking in all of the kind of medical benefits. It's kind of
Correct.
all of that is at your cost.
Yes.
Okay, so that brings you net, Andrea, at around $6,000. I'm calculating $6,083 using the taxation in California. Mm-hmm. Looking at the way you rate in the United States for the median, 50% make more, 50% make less. For the age bracket between 25 and 34, the median is at $50,700. You're making double that. Congratulations to you. You live in California. However, because Andrea has been so thoughtful as to how you approach your finances, I'm feeling pretty good about this. In fact, let's move now together into your assets. So you've been providing me with your statements. There is quite a bit here. And so we'll go step by step. Number one, I see here On your checking account, you're showing a balance of 3,247. Not many transactions on this one, just pretty much being used to pay back some of the current expenses that you have. Sweet. As I see also, you also have another checking account with a balance of 713. Okay, we'll be accounting for this one. Moving on to some of your saving, I see a first saving at 10,767. However, on this one, I do see a recent transaction of minus $10,000 on this account. Can you tell me a little bit more about what was that?
I actually had a friend tell me about the high yield savings account.
Yes.
And basically transferred all of my savings into that account. I had originally put in 40,000 into there. And then within a month, I saw I had made like $150. So I was like, oh, I'll put another 10,000 in there. So
excellent. So again, Andrea is referring to a higher saving account, which is an excellent position. Here you're earning, I believe, about 4.5% or so. This is about average with what is going on right now with the current rates. And I see you're totaling a balance of 51,310 on this one. Yes, I like that. Well thought out. Really liking what I'm seeing so far. Let's move on to some of your other assets. You do own a car, right?
I do.
What do you drive?
I drive a 2009 Toyota Camry.
Okay. And do you own any money on it?
No.
Okay. How many miles?
About 140,000.
Okay. And you bought this with your own money?
I took out a loan.
Oh, you took out a loan on it?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's paid?
Yeah. I think it was a 5-year loan at like 1.7%.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay.
All paid off.
Very nice. If we look at the value of this car right now, a private party, it's about 6,587. Toyota Camrys have really good, they have a really good resale value.
I bought it for $10,500.
And that was
10 years ago. Yeah.
Excellent. Those cars are, unkillable.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm going to drive it into
position.
the ground.
All right, let's move on. I see, and I'm very, very happy to see that you've also set up yourself for retirement very well, Andrea. Looking at some of the IRA positions that you have, I see that you have a traditional IRA with 15,840. This is fair. I also see that you have a Roth with 10,441. Okay. And another one, ladies and gentlemen, another traditional IRA with a position of 113,783. Okay. What was the thought behind going traditional on this one, like the big one?
There was no thought.
But could you have chosen Roth IRA on it?
I believe that my company offers a Roth because when I printed out my documents, it had the traditional and then Roth, and it was like Roth 0, traditional this, and I
just
am not educated enough on the subject to know which one is better. I always thought that just putting, the maximum into a Roth IRA every year was the equivalent, but I didn't realize you could do that with your retirement fund as well. So,
so mathematically at the end, they have different research that says that traditional may end up paying you a little bit more. However, that accounts for the taxation system that we are experiencing today. However, like myself, you are pretty young. You're 32 years old. We do not know how taxes are going to fluctuate in the coming decades. So yes, going the traditional route today in the current system may provide you with a better outcome at retirement. However, again, I would always advise to go the Roth route because of economic uncertainty and just the taxation system that's unknown because we are so early, So there could be a potential recommendation to convert this money at the current taxation. That could be a smart play for you. We'll be discussing about this. Here on your application, I also see a fairly atypical asset, which refers to your wedding and engagement band that you have from your marriage to the value of how much?
It's appraised collectively at about $30,000.
Okay. Are you hoping to...
Sell it.
You're hoping to sell it?
Yes.
Okay. So when it comes to diamond and jewelry, this is my personal take. Again, I'm not a jewelry expert. Assuming also this is a real diamond, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number one, personally, myself, I am a prone... It depends of your financial situation, but I prefer lab grown, okay? Just because of, number one, the price aspect, number two, the ethics around miners and so on, like the mining industry, and number three, also kind of an environmental friendlier option, and definitely of sometimes for greater quality than regular diamond. However, in your case, you had a regular one. This, of course, has a much greater value and resale value. I would personally, if I were you, not pawn those, okay?
Right.
I don't like the aspect of pawning. Why? Because what they're going to do simply is they're not going to pawn your specific ring. They're going to melt the gold that is probably around the ring and resell the diamond. All of the assets that you've mentioned to me right now are monetary assets, meaning it has a dollar value associated with it. Given your current scenario and the strengths of your finances, I would advise to also maintain some form of wealth in a physical element. Gold, at its root, is the source of how our monetary system has been based on. In fact, the dollar used to be pegged against the gold. Okay, that was kind of, how much is the value of a gold? That is what the dollar was pegged of. A couple of decades ago, this pairing no longer works, is no longer pegged to gold. And right now, the value of a dollar is linked to the value that you and I, as well as the economic systems like the World Bank and so on, are associating with it.
Right.
There is no pegging. There is nothing that backs it up other than the value that society has put against it. I believe that maintaining a form of wealth in physical elements like gold, diamonds, those, for the most part, are always going to maintain their value, okay? And in a system, in a financial system that is stable today, but we don't know how all of this will look. I mean, with the surge of crypto and so on, our system is going to change in the next decades. I can guarantee that. And with all of your positions being, again, monetary against the US dollar, you don't want to over-risk yourself into this. So personally, I would not sell those.
Okay.
I would melt them, put them in a storage that are going to be safe. And this is what I call the last frontier. Meaning that no matter what, if at some point something arises, you have a physical good that holds its value everywhere across the world. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
I like that thought.
Do you have any other assets?
No.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, and I may apologize, I meant also to ask this question. Are you, Andrea, coming from money?
No.
Okay, so 100% of what I'm seeing here today has been built by you.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings Andrea at 32 years old today at total assets of $242,801.
Wow.
$250,000.
You added that all up.
That's right.
I haven't never done that.
That's right. $250,000 here, built by yourself. And how did you build this? Well, we will see, guys. Very thoughtful as to how Andrea spends her money and just an overall really good profile. In fact, that leads me together to our next segment, which looks at your expenses and your debt. So you live in a fairly expensive city of San Diego in California. How much is your rent?
$29.95.
Hey, ay. That is quite steep. Okay, $29.95. That includes utilities?
No.
Okay. So how much in utilities, pretty much?
$175.
$175. Okay. So that brings you at around $3,170 per month on housing expense. That brings your housing expense against your income at 52%.
Yeah.
We generally like it to be below 28.
Okay.
So you're a little bit bowling on the rent aspect. However, what do you live in? In a 2-bedroom?
Yeah.
For yourself?
I have 4 animals.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
It would be a little tight in a 1-bedroom.
Okay.
And my family lives out of town, so it's nice to have the spare bedroom when people come to visit.
Okay. I feel it's expensive
It
for
is.
your income, but you are backing that up in other ways. Okay. In fact, if we transition into your next major payment, your transportation expenses, so you own your car outright, no monthly payment. When it looks at gas, how much do you spend per month?
About $200.
200.
About,
Okay.
yeah.
What about insurance?
$70 a month.
$70 on insurance in California? That seems low to me. Let me see what this is about. That seems pretty low, guys. Yeah. Okay, $70. That's probably why here I'm seeing, yeah, you're pretty much getting a full coverage, but it's still state minimum. So if you're watching, please take note. This is extremely important. Extremely important. While insurance and car insurance may be cheap, how they get you is they put you on a minimum bodily injury, which is the first life of your car insurance. And then they wipe you out on what is called uninsured, underinsured. And what that means is bodily damage is if it's your fault, Andrea, if you cause the accident to someone else.
Okay.
Now, if it's their fault and they do an accident to you, bodily damage gets wiped out. That's no longer an end. And they don't have enough to pay you. Your insurance comes in with what is called uninsured, underinsured.
Okay.
You only have $15,000 in it.
Oh.
When your bodily injury is $100,000.
Okay.
So if you cause the insurance, you're covering them and you for $100,000. But if they're the one that hit you, you're covered $15,000.
Okay. I think when I got this, my thought behind it was that my health insurance is free. So like if I had to go to the hospital with injuries, I would pay like a $50 deductible in the emergency room.
Yes. So what happens generally for those contexts, I'm glad that you bring the question, is that the medical insurance would take over that portion of the bill.
Okay.
However, there can be complexities, and that is also very dependent on medical insurance, where I was in that case. My underinsured, I was into an accident, $160,000+ of that. My underinsured was not as high. I learned from my mistakes. And my medical insurance took coverage for some of that portion. But it was a very big fight.
Oh, okay.
And the liability felt between both parties. And for example, I ended up spending money on it. Whereas sometimes, and for most of the case, if you have good insurance, okay, and you're well protected, you can end up leaving accidents with a lot of money, okay? Like a lot of compensation type money for everything that flows through you. So I left with money that I owned because my underinsured was peanuts.
Oh, okay.
Whereas in that case, yes, your medical coverage will pick up some of that, but you would still own a lot of money from it. So I always advise, number one, I would ask you to raise it to 100, 300 on bodily injury. I will write that in my notes. And number two, always match. That is important. Your uninsured, underinsured to your bodily injury one, okay?
Okay.
Bodily damage and injury. So this is a red flag for me a little bit. Right now, what I'm trying to do for you, Andrea, is to think about how do we protect the wealth that you've created and make sure that nothing comes as a surprise in the US system.
Okay.
Okay, that brings your current transportation expense very nicely at 5%. We like it to be below 15. That helps to compensate for your housing expense.
Right.
Really nicely done. As we transition into some of your expenses here, and let's look at some of the debt. Well, guys, let me show you. There is almost none. I see, though, some a little bit of expenses here related to travel. I see some, especially in the past month. You're spending quite a bit on flights and so on. So you like to travel.
I do.
Okay. Let me announce to you, I believe, one of my favorite travel hack. Okay. And again, this may seem controversial, but that's my personal take, and it is what it is. Personally, guys, I love timeshare. but I don't buy them. No way in hell am I going to buy a timeshare ever. What I love to do is to go on timeshare presentations. And so let me tell you very quickly about this. I've been going to Mexico for 7 days, 6 nights, all inclusive with my girlfriend for $119. Total. I'm going to Hawaii for $679, all inclusive in a 4-star hotel, 6 nights.
Oh, wow.
How do I do that?
Yeah.
Well, I tend to network myself pretty well across the timeshare industries. And what I mean by that is once you have one, everybody is starting to call you. And you have to lowball them like no tomorrow. Okay? Why am I presenting this option to you? Well, generally, they are targeting individuals that make a decent income. And you're making a pretty good income at over $100,000. Okay? You're also surpassing about 30 years old. That's kind of the threshold at which they look into. And what that offers you is an opportunity to go to timeshare presentations where they're going to sell you however they want to do it for 2 hours, a timeshare presentation. I've calculated the outcome, the financial outcome of going to those presentations to the amount of rewards that I get from going is incredible. But I have to always remain to one rule. No matter what is being presented, I will never buy a timeshare. No matter. Because what their goal is to present you a deal that is, hallelujah, it's the best ever. Oh my gosh, how could you not take this? So we spent there a good 5 hours and we went layer after layer. So at some point you start level 1. Oh, we're presenting you. And then you say no. They bring you to another person. At the end, we ended in the cave at the first floor of the resort. So we're like, oh, by the way, if you're thinking about this, maybe you should think about this. Okay. On top of that, they are funding your trip. But you please have to always make sure that you don't sign anything because the timeshare is a financial disaster. Okay? No matter whatever points and so on, at the end of the day, it becomes really tough. Now, if it was a timeshare 20 years ago, I will tell you, actually, it's not that bad. But today, the system, personally, I don't like it. If you have a timeshare, it's okay, I'm not going to... But maintenance fee, how they get you is they give you an amazing offer. Look at where all over the world you can travel. They charge you maintenance fee. There is a lump sum at the beginning. Then it's maintenance fee every month. Now, if the maintenance fee were flat, that would be no problem. That would be a great deal. What's going on is they have full authority as to how much they want to fluctuate those maintenance fee. So you may charge at $700 per year and you end 10 years later at $7,000.
Ooh.
And of course, it's unresellable. There is no equity bought into this. You can give it to your children and so on. But yes, have them enjoy the $7,000 or so maintenance fee. I'm generalizing here, of course. But this is personally how I like to travel. All inclusive for nothing. Okay. So travel hack here for you guys. However, you like to travel to destinations that may not offer this. In fact, here I see in your applications that you would be potentially interested in traveling to Thailand.
Yes.
Okay. As we think about this component, guys, we'll be tackling this in the recent minutes. I just want to quickly tie up to some of the rest of your expenses here. I see that you're recording a little bit of delivery with DoorDash and so on. All in all, if I was to calculate the sum of what I call the sheet counter, it's around $350, $400 a month. Look, I'm not too alarmed. I also see that you're recording some... You have 4 pets. I'm not seeing any pet insurance. This needs to be tackled immediately, no matter what. No, again, it's about protecting yourself as an individual and maintaining your wealth. But for the other part, I see a little bit of like a medical spa per month, about 115. A little bit of food out, a little bit of entertainment. Nothing too crazy. So overall, pretty good. Okay. Let's move on to your other credit card. You're showing a balance of $19. Okay. Do you have any other form of debt?
No.
Okay. You are a registered nurse. So at some point, I would assume that you've got some student loans.
Yeah.
How much did you have?
I had about $80,000 in student debt.
Okay.
So I graduated from nursing school and moved back in with my parents for a year and a half.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I was paying them $200 a month in rent, which is peanuts. and basically put the rest of my paycheck towards my loans. And then I paid it off a year and a half after I graduated and packed my bags and moved to California.
You're not showing with any other form of debt, any personal loans, any equity that you own to anyone, nothing.
No.
Total debt, $419. Very, very reasonable. I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing. As we transition now into our next segments, let's speak a little bit about fun and travel. Let's look at the money case. As we look into some of the recommendations, generally the money case serves as an intervention, but for you, I want for us to dream a little bit together, okay? And I want to speak about the financial power of the US dollar.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is we are fortunate, if you're watching from the United States, to be the leading currency in the world. Okay. And that gives us a tremendous amount of power as to how other currencies are being pegged against us. In fact, a lot of the currency, especially in Asian countries and South American, use the US dollar as something to peg against, something to back them against. Okay. With having one of the strongest currency, this gives us a tremendous opportunities as to the value of money in other countries. I myself had the chance to live in Thailand for almost a year in Bangkok, and I can prove of its experience of what I'm about to present to you. So when you go to Bangkok, okay, and let's say you go with $100, the value of what you can buy over there is pretty much a multiple of around 3.
Okay.
Okay, so for the exact same of services, of course, adjusted with the Thailand culture and so on, but $100 today that you're spending in Los Angeles is about $328 in Thailand. Okay.
Wow.
Now their local currency is called baht, but here I'm not looking just at the conversion between baht and US dollars. I'm looking at the cost of living adjusted between the two countries.
Right. Okay.
So when you think about, I don't know, buying a dinner outside, you have, of course, there is options that are available for tourism that are very expensive, but it's about a 1-to-3 ratio, which is exceptional for you. So as you think about your US dollar, you have a ton of power when it comes to looking at other industries. In fact, if we were to look at the value of your salary today, you're making about $6,000 per month in San Diego, okay, which is reasonable. But if you wanted to have a same quality of life in Bangkok, you would be spending around $2,015. I know many acquaintances that, for example, lives in South America, and they are earning, the local currency. For example, the Venezuelan currency is fluctuating like crazy. It lost like 80% of its values in the recent years.
Oh.
Exactly. And so we have to recognize the chance that we have to live in the country that, for the most part, leads the currency worldwide, and also allows us to generally, for most of the countries that you're going to travel, have a better cost of living. I'm only thinking potentially about Monaco, Switzerland, or maybe some aspects of Dubai where your money would be worth less than what you're earning in the US.
Right.
But to most of the countries that you will travel, if not pretty much 99% of them, your currency is going to be much stronger. So that's very excellent for all of us. All right, Andrea, let's move on together to next segment, which is looking at what is available to you now if I think about your current situation. So number one, we're going to be looking at your needs. This is money that you need to survive today per month in San Diego. You're looking at around $4,445. Okay, that is 73% of your income. We like it to be below 50. Why so? Well, you're spending quite a bit on your pet, and let's be honest, you're spending quite a bit on your accommodation. That's kind of the killer. But I'm not too afraid as we think about some of your wants, other than your travel that I've accounted for it. I'm looking at around $400 or so on your wants. That is split between food, entertainment, your medical spa, and miscellaneous expenses. That is about 6% of your income. It's very reasonable. I think that is fair. Where does that leave you? Well, that is a number that I want you to try and start thinking about, which is what we call the gold number. Okay, this is mathematically the number that today you can save, pay back debt, or invest. In your case, we want to be into the investment segment.
Okay.
And that's about 1,200 per month. Okay, that's the number that mathematically, assuming from what we've accounted for, excluding some of your biggest travel, you should be able to go about.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a very good number, around 20%. So we are pretty happy with that. Okay, now let's think a little bit strategy together as to what would I do with all the money that you have. That's going to be the interesting section of our discussion. Number one, I want to ask you, how is your credit score?
It's good, 780.
Wow, okay, excellent. So you've been pretty much playing the right game on it. This is going to appear a little bit controversial. Today, if you're going to want to buy a house, I'm concerned that despite having a good credit score, you will not benefit from the greatest rates.
Okay.
And you're going to tell me, wait, hold on, Romain, what's going on? I don't understand. I thought that having an excellent credit score would give me that. But that's not what creditors 100% look for.
Okay.
They want to see for you the ability to showcase good management of debt. Okay. And right now, other than showcasing your monthly payment on your credit cards and so on, you're not really showcasing anything to them as to how much you would be able to handle something like a mortgage.
Okay.
Mathematically, it is not preferred, but we would have to think from a long-term strategy. I want you either to sell your car at the market that it is right now and buy something that is, again, fairly reasonable, a little bit newer, potentially that can give you greater safety because, again, I want to protect you.
Yeah.
Okay? Airbags that are 15 years old, I don't know what's going on, okay? On top of that, the value of your car right now is still very strong. So am I going to say to our friend here, sell your car right away? Mathematically, it doesn't make sense. But from a strategy perspective and from a safety, I don't know why potentially you could look for what is called a certified pre-owned car that is a little bit newer. Think about maybe $15,000 or so. And put a portion of it. So you would sell your car, you would get about $6,000 back. And then put a down payment of $10,000 and get $5,000 as a loan.
Okay.
Okay. Why am I asking you to go a little bit in depth? Okay. Because $5,000 of a loan, you're not going to really pay a ton of interest, but you're going to showcase to the bank your ability to manage a payment from the start to the end.
Okay.
And that's going to be beneficial as bank and things about your mortgage. Now, do you need to do that by 100%? No. From a strategy perspective, this could be a good move as you think about future project. And again, safety for me is my priority as to your case. Number two. I would, of course, review all of your insurance coverage. You need to redo your car insurance. You need to do your pet insurance, all of this. Now, do you do life insurance? No. At this time right now, you're not married, you don't have a kid, you're in your life. I wouldn't consider any of this to be a priority.
Okay.
Number three, I would consider you creating what is called a revocable living trust. So a revocable living trust is something that I recommend to any individuals that is wanting to maintain the wealth that they have. And a trust allows you revocable, meaning it's something that this is part of what I call estate planning. And this allows you to create a line of paperwork as to the wealth that you accumulated if something was to arise, how it would be distributed. Okay. But the idea behind it is while it does not offer asset protection, sorry, I'm going into the specifics, it allows you to create a first layer of protection as to your future business ventures, okay? And it also creates, we are in a young age, for you to be able to create estate planning, again, if something was to arise.
Okay.
The whole idea behind it of why I'm bringing this is at some point, potentially, you're going to be interested about creating a business. Okay. And by creating a revocable living trust, you're going to funnel a process which is called a business vertical, that is going to be revocable trust, holding company, and operating company. Now, I don't want to dive into the business aspect, but what I'm saying is that by establishing this process, you're setting yourself good if you were to go into an entrepreneurial venture. Because at some point, you may be interested in creating a media company for your acting business.
Sure.
And by creating this structure, you might be able at some point to benefit. I don't want to go into too much detail. This can be very tricky. Into tax advantages. Okay. So this can go down into the rabbit hole very fast. But at its ground level, I want, and I will always recommend someone, especially in a position of great wealth like yourself, $250,000, to have an estate planning done early on so that things are kind of flowing nice and easy. As we think about other additional components and potential investment opportunities, right now what I'm seeing, looking at your accounts, is for the most part, you're pretty optimized with what you have. I would, as I mentioned previously, consider transforming your traditional IRA into a Roth.
Yeah.
When it comes to you as an investor, how would you classify yourself? Would you classify yourself as someone that is wanting to be aggressive or wanting to be more like, I want to be careful?
Oh, careful.
So what I would want for you to think about is a couple things. I think that you do not need right now $50,000 into a high-yield saving account. Okay? Not in a bad way. What I mean by that is I want you, we've calculated together your needs sum to about $4,500 or so, to put $30,000 into your high yield saving account. And this is what we're going to call the emergency fund.
Okay.
I want you to potentially put about $20,000 into potentially market positions that are going to give you a much greater return than what you could be expecting from the 4.5% into a high yield, while still investing in the market in positions that are pretty safe. AKA, I don't want you to put a dump of money like your ex-husband into crypto or any of that BS. You have the chance to invest into positions, again, that are fairly stable, that are going to give you about 10% a year or so. Okay?
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's right. While still being fairly stable. Okay, and those are some of the stocks that I personally like myself are VOO. This is something that is the S&P 500, VTI, VGT, QQQ a little bit, SPYI. SPYI is a dividend play on call options on the S&P 500, and I have about 10% of crypto myself. Okay, all of this will be provided to you at the end. But the idea is for you to create a portfolio, a brokerage account that allows you to invest into the market that is still free cash for you at a slightly better rate than what you would get from a high yield saving account. Okay, while still being fairly stable. Okay. There is a notion of market risk. Right now, your high-yield saving account, no matter what's going on, you will be paid 4.5% a year.
Right.
There is a market fluctuations. Last year, we grew 21%. The year before that, we went down quite a bit. So there is a fluctuations, but if you average it out over time, it's about 10% or so.
And can you pull out your money at
instantly?
Any time? Okay.
Yeah.
With no penalties?
With no penalties.
Okay.
It's the nature of a brokerage account.
Very cool.
Something else that I would potentially consider for you is what I call T-bills. Treasury bills. This is a government contract that currently pays about 5.24% per year. Now, why am I saying that? Well, if you don't need the money and you still want to have diversification of your portfolio, T-bills guarantee a rate for you that is being paid at the contract expiration. What I mean by that is you would put today $10,000, you come back in 1 year, and you would be given $10,514. But what is key about that is the tax aspect is very beneficial to the owner.
Okay.
But there is a kick. You have to keep your money in it for a year. You can't withdraw. If you withdraw, you're going to be penalized.
Okay.
But if you're like, I don't need that money for a year.
Yeah.
I don't care. Just take it. I open it back in a year. Boom. That's your money, and it has much little taxation. It's another strategy.
Yeah.
As we think about additional diversification of investments, you could potentially consider real estate plays. Okay. However, right now, I do not feel like this is the right time. And let me tell you why. I think, Andrea, you've put yourself into an excellent position to pursue your passion. Andrea has taken the steps. Today, I feel very confident that you can say, I'm going to continue my nursing periodically. I'm going to go a lot into my acting.
Yeah.
Because you've allowed yourself to maintain a position. She's not going all in like many of you who are potentially watching saying, yeah, acting is everything. And then you're scrapping every month because you're giving everything. No. She's put herself into a career that has allowed us to get a decent income while still, so your left hand, your financial structure is stable. Mm-hmm. Your right hand, go for it. And guess what? I'm in the exact same position as you. I've allowed myself to have a salary and a career that offers me the chance to push into my passion, which is what I'm experiencing with you right now. But yourself have positioned yourself almost to perfection as to what you could have done. So when you're telling me, Romain, I want to pursue that, I say, go 100%. You have absolutely no problem financially about taking that shot. Okay? So this is very nice, and I'm very happy to tell you that, because I think you could almost be an example of how to approach personal finance in US. You're playing the game, but you're being mindful as to how you play it. Yes, you took the first class to Europe and so on. Okay, who cares? Some people, you need to live life. You can't just live like this of scraps or rice and beans every month. That's not how we live. Yeah. But on the side, you have the finance backup to be able to offer yourself those experiences. So there needs to be a little bit of polish as to your case, the insurance and so on. But personally, as I told you earlier, you're in the top 3 of the cases that I've seen. There is only very little that I would enhance on your situation. The car, you can do it, you cannot do it. That's kind of up to you. You know, I'm safety oriented. Yeah. So protecting the person, to me, you have a double play here. You have a play on the credit score and you have a play on the safety aspect. You can afford to go this route. When it comes to your rent, I'm saying, okay. It's expensive. Is it the best? Is it the best mathematically? No, but heck, you know, you have to live. You're making efforts on the side. Forget about all of the DoorDash and so on, please. If you have to go, just take the drive. Some of the decisions that you're going to take in the future financially are going to have a tremendous impact, and you're giving yourself this shot, so you're going to have to compensate a little bit on the absolutely. Side. So all of the DoorDash and so on, just be mindful of that. I don't want to restrict it to 100%. But overall, I feel very, very good about your situation. Do you have, Andrea, anything that you want to say to address something that could be either your story or the decisions that you've taken, or speaking to someone in the camera here that just find themselves lost or just doesn't know how to approach things? You've approached things, as I mentioned, almost to perfection. So what would you also say to this audience?
Growing up, I think I was very annoyed and thought my parents were being very hard on me as far as, you know, working to, you know, I wasn't handed anything. And I look at my little brother, you know, they bought his first car for him. It wasn't new. They handed him down a car. You know, and I didn't have that luxury, but I look at it as an advantage to me, really, because it put me in that mindset that if I want something, then I have to work for it. So, I mean, I am proud of where I am today because I've worked my ass off for it. So, I know, you know, there's my ex-husband, for example, grew up with the silver spoon, and, you know, his dad's a doctor, and his family's well off, and I can just see the way that being raised differently can really affect your future and how you handle stuff like finances as an adult. So I'm very thankful for my parents.
Okay. No, but you've also been smart all the way. You know, the education can only bring you so far, and it becomes to the person to make the decisions. And today, finance are a set of decisions and circumstance, luck and so on takes a play. But at the end of the day, it comes a lot to the decisions, and you've been very smart in your approach. So guys, just an excellent story. I'm glad to also bring this variety of people that are actually making it and making it great. We hope you enjoyed this type of content. We'll see you in many of the stories. Until then, I see you next time. À bientôt.
I just wanted to hop on here and talk about the changes that I've made since our interview. I have increased my car insurance. I have not gotten pet insurance yet. I applied to a part-time job at my company, and if I get that position, then I will get a discount on pet insurance, which I will plan on doing if I get that position. I have cut down on takeout because that was one of my biggest expenses. I was getting ramen once a week, which was like 40, 50 bucks a meal. Ridiculous. My friends now know if we're hanging out, we're cooking at home. And I spoke to my sister-in-law, who is my financial advisor, and we plan on putting a big chunk of my savings into some good stock. And I have not quite done the living trust yet, but I have recently come up with an idea for a film that I would love to put together, and if that is successful, then I plan on doing the living trust. All in all, I am so grateful for the experience that I had, and you know, all the knowledge that was shared with me.